Welcome back to the In Chamber. I'm your host, Tom Schumann. In the most recent In Chamber episode, we accomplished a first in talking to former Major League Baseball pitcher Todd Stottlemyre. It wasn't a baseball story, though, but a look into doing all you can to drive personal and business fulfillment and success. Stottlemyre turned his life around 28 years ago and continues that journey today with some lessons to be learned for all. Encourage you to go back and listen to that episode if you haven't had the opportunity yet. We bring somewhat of a similar theme back to Indiana today with our conversation. It's about a positive approach to life, not being afraid to take on new adventures and living life to the fullest. Brittany Moser's story is an emotional one, as her life was tragically cut short by disease. Her father, however, not only completed the bucket list the two of them had been experiencing together, but continues to share her story in so many ways, including in the book, Free and Fearless, The Amazing Impact of One Precious Life. Phil Moser, welcome to the In Chamber.
Well, thanks for having me, Tom.
Well, we appreciate it. Phil, you were born in Angola, known for its many lakes, as well as being the home of Trine University. You've lived in Steuben County in Northeast Indiana all your life. Your second daughter, Brittany, was born in 1984. Tell the listeners a little bit about yourself and about Brittany.
I just had a pretty normal, I guess you could say, background. I was born and raised on a family farm, and one of my biggest goals in life was to have a family. And I was very blessed. I met my wife, and she's a special person, and we had a goal of having a family, and we had two great daughters. But our youngest one was she was more outgoing and just very positive about life and loved everything and just had an upbeat attitude like nothing I'd ever seen before. And she could accomplish things that I never thought possible. She opened up my world to possibilities and adventures I never thought possible. And she was just an inspiration to me, not only me, but everyone that met her. Her attitude was infectious. She was positive and upbeat and talented. Anything she put her mind to, she was able to accomplish. Just basically with not so much always in raw talent, but just her attitude would overcome some of the obstacles that she had to overcome.
All right, Phil. Phil, you tell a story early in the book about Brittany being on a softball team as a youngster and actually stepping into pitch when the two other regular pitchers were unavailable. The team went on to win the championship. And as you tell it, Brittany came to you and handed you her trophy, saying, "I could not have done this without you." Well, what did that tell you at a young age about Brittany and really kind of seemed to almost set the stage for so many great things to come?
That's exactly right. It was a defining moment. I like to think of it as, and when she was able to rise above the, I want to say the challenges that were put before her, and she did it with just her spirit and not necessarily raw talent, that I knew that she was going to be go places in life. And not only did she have that mentality of nothing was going to stop her if she put her mind to it, that she was the warmest, kindest person that I'd ever known. And she was so grateful for the attention and the support that we gave her, both my wife and myself.
It fell something else in the book about Brittany studied film production at Ball State University, and after graduating, she didn't take that first job that was offered, but really waited for the right opportunity.
Exactly.
My take is that's a pretty mature approach for a 21, 22-year-old at the time, but you certainly were supportive of that, weren't you?
Yes. Many times she had goals or plans on doing something, and even myself and sometimes my wife, we were like, we're not too sure about that, but she had a way of proving us wrong on some of the decisions that she made were so insightful, I guess is a good word to use. She could see things that we couldn't see, and she always went for the best opportunity or the best goal.
Well, Phil, the adventure, I could say the outdoor adventure part of Brittany's story seems to begin with her move to Colorado. Uh, there's a little bit of magic in those mountains, isn't there? And share how Brittany embraced that lifestyle and kind of expanded her journeys out in Colorado.
Her best friend told her about Colorado. Her best friend, when she was in college there at Ball State, said, well, Brittany, I know you, and I came from Colorado. I think you'd really like Colorado. And so her best friend suggested that she go to Colorado before going to California and trying to get into the movie industry. And it turned out to be a great move. She loved Colorado. It just fit her lifestyle. They're very outgoing. I guess you could say that it's one of the healthiest states in the nation with all the sunshine and the higher altitude. There's thinner air and it increases your metabolism, and it agreed with her very much, and she liked it there very well.
Phil, I remember reading that Denver has more days of sunshine than California or Florida. I was shocked at that.
Yes. By this time, after college, she had noticed she had a thyroid condition, and part of that was it compromised her immune system a little bit, and the sunshine is great for your immune system. It builds your vitamin D, and that's part of the reason why it's a healthier environment. And she embraced that.
So, Phil, not only is Brittany, living her life to the fullest, the two of you started to experience together a list of, quote, 20 places in Colorado that will take your breath away. Talk about just that opportunity and what that was like, sharing some of those special times with your daughter.
She'd got some experience with a guy that did like event videos and wedding videos, and she got to be really good at it. And but she was also outgoing, and she wanted to she was adventurous, and she wanted to see the world. And she got a job as a flight attendant, and she started flying all over, and she loved meeting new people and going places. And while she was still single, and she just loved the adventure part of that. And when she had started having symptoms in the flights and she had to be grounded, she still wanted to do some adventurous things. And she just called me up one day and says, Dad, I got this like bucket list of adventures I'd like to do, and you're my best friend. Would you go with me? And that moment just blew me away. She was almost 30 years old, had been on her own for about 12 years, and she still wanted to spend time with me and considered me her best friend. And I was so touched. There was just no way that I could say no to that. And so every vacation I got, I would fly out, or my wife and I would both fly out, and we would work on this list of adventures she come up with. The criteria for this list was they were 20 places so beautiful, either in nature or whatever, that they would literally take your breath away. And that was the kind of adventure she wanted.
They'll give the listeners a couple of examples. I'm sure for some of them it'll be things that they've experienced themselves, and it might be new for others. But what were a couple of the early ones you experienced with Brittany that jumped out to you?
The Garden of the Gods. Now that is one that's pretty popular. It's one of the bigger attractions or most popular attractions in Colorado. It was just the natural beauty of the place was just breathtaking. And so it was something that I understood when she said that they had to take your breath away, because that's exactly what they did. And we had a connection in that part of the adventures of doing those things that were so beautiful. I understood where she was coming from.
Bill, this is where the story gets difficult. I would say, for a rare disease entered the picture beyond the thyroid disease that you talked about, and this certainly impacted Brittany's ability to continue those adventures and ultimately took her life. I know you're dedicated to spreading the awareness of Addison's disease. Can you talk about that, how it impacted Brittany at the end, and your efforts in getting the word out about Addison's disease?
Yeah, in 2 years of doing the adventures, we got 13 of the 20 that was on her list completed. And that's when she started really getting sick, and she couldn't continue. She got so sick that she had to be carried into the emergency room, and they couldn't figure out what was the matter with her. And the first time she went to the emergency room, they just sent her home. They couldn't find anything specifically wrong with her. And then she got so sick again that she had to go to the emergency room again. They took some tests and they come back and said that you're absolutely right, Brittany. You have Addison's disease. So she had to basically diagnose herself.
Yeah, Phil, we lost a little bit of audio there. We heard you talk about how the first couple times she went to the emergency room, they sent her home, but then I think to recap, you say that she pretty much had to diagnose or did her own homework and came back and was able to determine that it was the Addison's disease.
Mm-hmm.
Phil, Brittany passed away at age 32, but can you share the last communication that she had with you, the message that she shared on her phone, which happens to be where the title of the book came from? I just thought it was the perfect illustration of how the little things were so important to her, and it just kind of symbolizes the relationship that the two of you had.
She knew she was in danger of not surviving, so she made preparations just in case. Now, she had plans on moving forward, but she also knew she had almost died twice before getting diagnosed. And so she did something that I've never heard anybody else ever do. She put on her phone a message in case she did not survive. And that message went something like, "Mom, Dad, Sister, I've lived a very fulfilling and happy life. I've lived as I wanted, free and fearless. happy, and always at peace. And there was a whole bunch of hearts, rows and rows of hearts below that message, that she was okay with it, and she loved us and loved the life that she had. And at the very bottom of the message, just to lighten it up, she put a message that said, "Whatever money is in my key bank account is yours. Go on a tropical vacation." And so even in that serious of a message, she still wanted good things to happen, even if she wasn't in the picture anymore. And I've never known anybody to have that kind of insight.
No, it's just amazing, Phil. Simply amazing. Brittany may have been gone, but obviously the surprises and the accomplishments continued. Let's start with first the gathering of friends that came together in Denver to celebrate her life. How gratifying was that for you and your wife and your family to see all the people's lives that she had touched?
Yeah, we had to go to Denver to pick up her belongings and her remains. And one of the things that her landlord had mentioned, that she had, in her time in Denver, had actually made a lot of friends out there, and they would like to honor her and meet us. And so at the very last, I guess you could say, day or two while we were out there, we decided to put together a gathering at the sports bar where she had worked after she was a flight attendant. And we were just amazed at the turnout. We had a whole room full of people that came and knew Brittany and was touched by her infectious spirit and wanted to tell us the amazing stories that we didn't even know, that how she touched their lives. And that was one of the most gratifying things, to know that how much her life meant to people. And it was an unexpected pleasure, I guess you could say, in this difficult time.
Yeah, certainly. So, Phil, we talked about the list of adventures. You and Brittany experienced 13 of those together. So 7 left on that original list, and then I think one more that she had added. Was there any doubt in your mind that you were going to go ahead and finish those, or was there a little bit of a time period?
After reading that message she left on her phone, how much she cared about the people that was in her life, that there was just no doubt in my mind she didn't leave anything undone, and I wasn't gonna either. And so it became my mission to fulfill what we had started in the 2 years prior to her passing. And I was going to do it in her spirit, and that's exactly what we did. And we met and more made new friends along the way, and created quite a story for an inspirational story for people to follow. And it was all because of her and her insights and her caring person. And there was just no doubt that we were going to finish what we started.
And some of this wasn't easy, in reading the book. You had to do some training and some preparation.
Yes.
You had some adventures to accomplish out there. Talk about that final adventure to Sky Pond, and what went into that, the work went into making that happen, and just that entire experience.
That was probably the most difficult adventure of all of them. And I had planned probably a year to making that happen. And a bunch of friends of hers. A bunch of friends of hers also wanted to go, so we met out in Rocky Mountain National Park at Estes Park, and a lot of us got to stay in the same house. And so we picked a day that we were going and a time. We needed to start very early in the day, and we all met about 6:30 in the morning, and we started out, and it took 10 hours to get to Sky Pond and back. And it was some very rugged terrain that we had to endure. And but we all made it safely, and it turned out great. And we even made a video of it, which I put on my website, that if people want to see our last adventure together, that it is on my website.
Bill, we talked earlier about Brittany's studies in film production and some of the work that she did in that area. And as we were preparing for today's conversation, you mentioned that you currently that some producers are looking at Brittany's story for a possible movie. Talk about that, the importance to you of potentially taking her life full circle in that way.
One thing I learned from Brittany, whenever she put her mind to do something, she made it happen. No matter what the odds were, no matter what the difficulty was, she could seem to will it to happen with her attitude. And one of her goals was, when she graduated from Ball State, was to work in the movie industry in California. And since she had that goal, I believe that it was meant to be, that her story will be a movie. And so that is now my goal, is to see that happens. And that will fulfill, in my mind, it will fulfill her legacy.
And I sense that you're bringing some of the passion that Brittany experienced in her life to this effort. Absolutely. Phil, we mentioned the Addison's disease a little bit earlier. Can you talk a little more about that? What it is, how kind of a little bit of how rare it is, and efforts to continue, research into that to help others?
Well, the first time she went to the emergency room, they turned her away because they couldn't find anything specifically wrong with her outside of just being sick. And she called me and says, "Dad," she says, "I think they think I just want some drugs or something." She says, "But I'm really sick and they don't know what it is." And nobody should have to diagnose themselves when they have a fatal illness or something that serious. And I feel that if I can help bring awareness to the medical community and to others, and support the ones with Addison's disease, that would be something that she would appreciate also, to help others with that. Nobody should have to go through that. And so that's another one of my goals, is to bring awareness about Addison's disease. Your body doesn't produce cortisol, which is a natural, I think hormone is the word I want to use. And so they have to supplement it, but it's extremely rare, 1 in 100,000. John F. Kennedy actually had it, but they never told the public back in those days. They did not want him to look vulnerable in any way, shape, or form. And that was pretty amazing when I found that out. It's like, okay, we have this rare disease, but they're actually keeping it kind of a secret back in those days. Well, I want to help bring awareness now.
Absolutely. Phil, at the end of the day, you experienced 32 wonderful years with your daughter, Brittany. What is your message for others as you look back on, again, that time that you had together, and how, again, Brittany approached life?
The connection we had was special, and I always knew it was special. And in the toughest moments of life, which we did have to endure, that's what will carry you through, is those special connections that you can make in life. You can open yourself up to someone that really cares and you care about them. That's what'll carry you through the most difficult things in life. And at the time that we did things together, I always knew it was special and always cherished it. And if we can have that awareness that those are what's important in life, especially in this pandemic, we've kind of been found out what's important and what isn't. And to me, having those special connections, that's what's important.
Well, Phil, you mentioned the pandemic, and certainly the past year, almost year now, that so many people have experienced a variety of emotions and challenges. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to have this conversation after becoming aware of your book, and because I think there are so many messages for people that even in the challenging times, it's that approach, that mental approach, that zest for life that really has to help carry so many people through. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's almost like the good thing that's coming out of this pandemic is to put in our priorities where they should be, with the things that are important. And your connections in life are at the top of the list.
Well, Phil, based on our conversation and my reading of the book and your efforts, I'm confident that in the months or the years to come, whatever it takes, that Brittany's story will come full circle, and that you're going to honor her life by having that story told even more broadly, whether in a movie or in some other form. So our thoughts, our prayers are with you on that journey, and I'm confident that's going to be successful.
Oh, well, thank you very much. I'm grateful I got to tell you my story in person. I really appreciate that.
Well, Phil Moser, thanks so much. Again, the book, Free and Fearless, The Amazing Impact of One Precious Life. We'll have links accompanying the podcast where you can learn more about the book and the story. Phil, thank you so much again for sharing, and as you continue to do, but for taking time with our audience today. We truly appreciate it.
Well, thanks for having me, Tom.
All right. Before we wrap up, we are at the time of this conversation, we're a week out from the Chamber's annual Chamber Day dinner. We've talked about that recently. Myra Selby, the first woman to serve and the first African-American as an associate justice on the Indiana Supreme Court, will be talking about diversity and inclusion as part of her message. That event on March 16th, virtual event you're encouraged to participate in. Upcoming conversations, we'll get back to some Indiana policy discussion. We're gonna have a conversation with the new first Secretary of Education for Indiana, Dr. Katie Jenner. So we look forward to that coming up. As always, thank you for listening to the In Chamber. We appreciate it.